As a chronic note taker with a terrible memory, I find it a bit annoying that there isn't a better way to catalog every single thought that comes into my mind before it escapes into oblivion and never comes back. Hi, I'm Anastasia, I'm a student of social entrepreneurship at Tallinn University, and this is my second channel that I created with the sole purpose of cataloging every single experience, class, course, conversation that I found helpful on my journey of building a social enterprise. I am currently on a mission to reduce the amount of textile waste from wearable, perfectly good items that could be repaired instead of being thrown into the landfill. And my social startup is called unsustainable. If you'd like to follow our journey on Instagram, here it is, but otherwise this YouTube channel will be the space where I want to leave the traces of all of those steps, similarly to how I did for my bachelor's degree, which is actually in fashion design of all things. Maybe I'll reel it back a little bit and explain how I even got on the path of studying what I'm studying and building what I'm building. I studied fashion design for 4 years at British Higher School of Art and Design, which is a university that was affiliated with Hertfordshire University in England. My tutors were English, my entire course was in English, and it was very practical. So I actually got to exercise the dream of becoming a little fashion designer. And to prove that this was my dream from the very beginning of being a child, I actually have an album to show you. This is the album, the graduation album from 4th grade. And in my section, it shows here in the middle, it says who I want to be, riiete designer, which is clothing designer or fashion designer. So this dream had been alive and well since I was a little kid, until it got crushed. And you would think, wow, what a dream, right? I wanted to become a fashion designer. I actually studied. During the study process, I was an intern at a very nice company in Estonia, which is called Pohjanheimo. Then I worked a little bit at my friend's company and so on. And so since being a child, I really wanted to become a fashion designer. And my parents fully encouraged me to actually pursue whatever I was interested in. So there I am in my dream profession, basically studying for my dream course and enjoying every single last bit of it. And to just illustrate that, you can either watch some of the videos to see the passion directly, but I spent approximately 16 to 18 hours a day actually focusing on those things. So I would go to university for multiple hours, then get home, prepare some food, and then go back into working on this. So I never really relaxed. Whenever my ex-partner and I would watch TV or something, I would constantly in parallel do my home assignment. Just wanted to inhale every single bit of inspiration every single day. And that meant either photoshopping, knitting, crocheting, embroidering, designing things in parallel with watching movies in the evening, on the weekends, on my free time as well. And the only moments where I would actually detach from that creative process were during my breaks, Christmas break, summer break, whatever those were. And that was kind of the logic to which I got used to operating at. I would operate extremely intensively, complete a certain thing, take a break, and then follow that cycle all over again. And for me, that never seemed to be a problem. And to this day, I don't think that is the case. I am a very highly motivated individual, and whatever I have a goal in front of me, I'm achieving it regardless of what that is. Now, as of a week ago, I know why that is the case. At work, we did a test which is Clifton's strengths assessment. It outlines 34 different strengths that exist and ranks them for you personally. And my top 5, which is what we focused on at that point, were achiever, learner, focus, insight, and strategy. And the achiever being number 1 very highly resonates with me. And this is also why you would think that usually what you associate creative people with is someone who's a bit more free-spirited, maybe like hippie if you were to associate that with a certain visual. That was definitely not me. I was kind of stick up your ass type of creative person who was very systematic with the approach. So there I am, enjoying every last bit of it, right? And you will think, how did that pivot even happen? How do you go from a fashion design student who's super inspired to someone who's essentially building a business that doesn't necessarily go hand in hand as much? The answer is actually kind of gradually. So all throughout my studies in fashion design, I was focusing a lot on the fact how unsustainable that industry is. I believe right now statistics are that it's 4th most polluting industry on the planet after agriculture, food, and oil, if I'm not wrong. I am faced at that point with a bit of a conundrum. The industry is very exciting in terms of the actual participation in it, but then the output is absolutely devastating and the effect on the environment is absolutely hideous. So I was then engaging a lot with sustainability within the fashion sector, and I was being invited to be a public speaker at different events. I had a chance to engage with the community of sustainability activists within the textile sector, and the more I educated myself, the more I listened to their talks or got a chance to prepare my own and just speak on how fashion industry or fashion education engages with that, the more I realized that it's actually just unavoidable. I tried to make my degree collections and all of the collections since the point on that I started engaging with sustainable fashion as sustainably as I could. I used existing clothing, existing dead stock fabrics, I bought secondhand materials to apply to my processes, and there was one collaboration project that we did back in the day with H&M of all things that were trying to position themselves as sustainable. Yeah, I get the irony, but we ended up collaborating with them and using their dead stock materials to create our projects. So all of those were super exciting, but also devastating. So by the time that I graduated in a pandemic, I realized that it's just not gonna happen. I just cannot allow myself to become a fashion designer. That was the realization that I came to during the time of the first wave of the pandemic, when everything was closed, when I had to move countries as well, when I didn't expect. That was kind of abrupt. Also, that was kind of a period of change for me, where I was faced with this typical graduate crisis when you finish university and you're a little bit lost. So I gave myself a bit of time. At that point, I was also trying to find a job in the industry, but entry-level positions for a creative individual during the pandemic, it was a bit naive of me to assume that that position would actually exist. Yeah, that did not happen, safe to say. There I am, back in Estonia, living with my family after the pandemic, in a very similar situation as a lot of people were, but also faced with the realization that the industry I love is actually causing too much pain for me to engage with it directly. While first becoming a fashion design student, I was convinced that I would have my own brand. And by the end of those 4 years, I realized, okay, the brand is not happening, but I want to still use my entrepreneurial mindset and my achiever mindset to do some good within the field of knowledge that I obtained in those 4 years. So I decided that, okay, at this point, while I'm being young, I have to pivot and focus on honing in on skills that I don't yet possess, which were on the side of entrepreneurship or any sort of business insight or structure, or learning how to lead people, learning how to engage the rest of people to support your work process. Because during my university studies, predominantly you would work alone. As a graduate, you would create a collection yourself. So it was only very me centric. But I knew that if I were to build a business in the future, even if it were according to plan A and it would be a fashion brand, I would still need to have a lot more people engaging in this process, because I wouldn't know how to be a great pattern cutter. I wouldn't know how to structure a business from ground zero, right? I would have to learn or get the people who have those expertise in the areas that I like. I ended up going to Bolt, one of Estonia's unicorns, a country, by the way, which has the highest amount of unicorns per capita. I ended up applying as a CS agent. Very much an entry-level job, not a leadership position, but I knew that I was going to do my absolute best to get to the leadership role as soon as possible. Again, focusing on using my achiever skills. And lo and behold, within 2 years, I got 5 promotions, or 4 promotions, got through 5 positions. I was a CS agent at first. I think I lasted like 3 months. Then I got promoted to a role which was sort of an analytical role. You make a CS ticket, it goes to a CS agent, but let's say someone else needs to be engaged. Escalation specialist was a person who was assessing those kind of conversations, any sort of necessary assessments, CS interactions that could be improved in some way. I don't remember, like, this is my LinkedIn timeline within Bolt, but then afterwards I got to a team lead position. After being a team lead of those escalation specialists, I then got into a senior team lead position for African markets, and then after that became a regional lead. And regional lead was the position I was in right now up until about a week ago, where we had a whole management change, and now I am in a role of CS program manager, directly reporting to our new VP. And program manager is essentially a project manager, which is again perfect for me at this stage, because I was in a leadership position learning how to essentially manage conversations, people, any sort of projects. But I realized that my favorite part of it all was actually getting as close to the business as possible and working with projects more so than working with people and any sort of day-to-day situations. So now, as of a week ago, I'm very much happy in being a project management position. Where in this whole timeline my university comes. I was probably about in a team lead position at that point, and I started kind of coming up with the idea of what I wanted to do for Unsoon, which is a platform that connects together people with broken items and people who can fix them for them, with the goal of reducing the amount of textile landfill waste, to make sure that your items are alive for longer, because the best thing we can do for our planet is to keep and use what we already own. I wanted to have a bit of structured guidance and structured learning, because by that point, yes, I was close to operations, yes, I was kind of understanding how CS structures work and how the general Bolt structures do, but I didn't necessarily know how to build one myself. I started searching for universities, and I looked for probably like 400 different programs globally. I found a bunch of them. I was completely dismissive of Tallinn University just for the reason that I was in Estonia, a country that I was living in already at that point. But then my partner and I had a conversation of, why am I dismissing a great university, great program, super practical seemingly from that point, if it fits all of my criteria and I'm able to still stay in Estonia and save up money continuously for buying an apartment or doing something with it. One point of context also I didn't mention is that while going to Bolt, immediately from my first paycheck, I started saving up 75% of my salary to be able to save up enough for my master's degree, because at that point I was still considering maybe going into fashion direction, but studying something like circular economy within fashion sector or something like this. And back then the dream was still to go to Central St. Martin's, which is one of the most expensive schools you can think of. The best one in fashion, yes, but extremely expensive. So I started ambitiously saving up as much as I could, and at that point I lived with my family. So thanks to them, I was actually able to save 25,000 euros, I think, within 2 years. I didn't end up using it for my master's degree because I didn't go to England, but I ended up using that for my down payment for the apartment that I'm in now. The walls are quite bare still. The makeover is still yet to happen. I spent all of the money on the down payment, so I had to save up a little bit to furnish the rest. Anyways, long story short, right, I decided that I wanted to have some guidance. I work the best when I have some sort of structure, and I wanted to get that from my master's program to get the skills and knowledge that I needed to be confident in building a company. So I applied, got in, and from September 2024, I've been studying in the master's degree program. At this point, I'm in May, so it's already been almost a full year of studies. So there's a lot that we'll be sharing in future videos as recaps of my favorite courses, things that I learned along the way, and events that have happened throughout this time. At this stage, I also created a company. I've officially incorporated it in December, so it's been a couple of months running, and I've already piloted this with a couple of paying users, 14 to be exact. At least we have validated that this could work, and I am now building on top of it. I have a team of 3 people, besides me 2 more, so one of them is a UX UI designer, Joseph, and a developer, Andri, who are working on making this actually a platform instead of the landing page and web solution that it is now. And this is the current stage. So I welcome you on this journey. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, maybe engage as well. If you have any broken clothing that you would like to get repaired and you are in Tallinn, please feel free. And otherwise, any sort of support is welcome. So just following us, engaging with the content, and maybe having a chat with me on this YouTube channel if you ever stumble upon it.